Welcome to a lecture for Bachelor of Arts, Semester 1, in the subject of English as per the syllabi of Kurukshetra University, Haryana. This lecture is recorded for the Department of Higher Education under the aegis of Director General, Higher Education, Haryana. Dear students, this lecture will assist you in understanding the speech, The Responsibility of Young Men, which was authored by Lal Bahadur Shastri and is the ninth chapter in your book titled Literature and Language, Part 1. This essay, titled The Responsibility of Young Men, was delivered by Lal Bahadur Shastri on the 19th of December 1964 at the convocation ceremony of Aligarh Muslim University. Lal Bahadur Shastri, or Shastri Ji as he was fondly addressed, was born on the 2nd of October 1904 at Mughal Sarai in India and died on the 11th of January 1966 due to a cardiac arrest at Tashkent in Uzbekistan. Lal Bahadur Shastri was a freedom fighter and avid politician who held many portfolios in independent India and the second Prime Minister of our great country. He was known as the man of peace. Shastriji was a staunch secularist who believed that this great country belonged to every citizen born on this land, irrespective of their caste, color, creed, religion, or gender. Shastriji was renowned for his exemplary honesty and humility. In fact, so great was his stature that it was as high as Mahatma Gandhi and remains unparalleled for his ethics and honesty among Indian politicians. The Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration at Mussoorie has been named after him to inspire ethics amongst civil servants. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to understand the literary style of speech, also known as public speaking or oratory. You will also understand the relationship between duties, responsibilities, and rights of a citizen, as well as the role of youth in the development of a nation. This lecture will also inculcate the values of secularism and brotherhood in you and inspire you to uphold the unity in diversity of our great motherland. Before we begin with the responsibility of young men, let us try and understand what we mean by the term speech. In the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, the famous essayist, speech is power, speech is to persuade, to convert, to compel. Unquote. We may understand speech as a spoken prose form which is used to express the thoughts and ideas of the speaker. The writing of a speech is crisp and persuasive and intends to move the listeners and always suits the occasion to convey a specific message. Now, when you stand in front of an audience and talk to them about something with a definite aim of persuading them to act upon it, this act of performing a speech to a live audience is called oratory or oration. Speeches may be broadly classified as the impromptu speech, which, as the name itself tells, is prompt, is immediate, straight from the heart, and informal. It is what you say when somebody asks you to speak a few words to the audience. The second type is the extemporaneous speech, which is delivered after a few minutes' preparation and is conversational in style and uses notes. Usually, the speaker is given a topic and a few minutes to think on it. The speaker jots down his points on a piece of paper and refers to that paper while he is presenting his speech. The third form of speech is called the manuscript. The manuscript, as the term itself gives us to understand, is a pre written, articulate, very long, and very precise document which is presented to an audience. Because of its length and articulate language, it often becomes monotonous for the audience to listen to a long manuscript speech. A manuscript speech does not offer the speaker the liberty of changing his speech while he speaks, depending upon the need of the listeners and the mood of the audience. It is something which cannot be tampered with. And now we come to the last type of the speech, which is the memorized speech. The memorized speech is nothing but a written speech which one memorizes by heart and speaks without taking assistance from the notes. It has to be a one stretch public performance without any aid. What you see on your screens right now is a very famous painting by Cesare Maccari. The painting has the Roman orator Cicero speaking to the Roman Senate. This painting is titled Cicero Denounces Catiline and was painted in 1889. And now to talk about the chapter The Responsibility of Young Men. This speech is an excerpt from Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri's speech delivered on 19th December 1964 at the convocation ceremony of the esteemed Aligarh Muslim University. Shastriji very well recognized the importance of ethics in youth and therefore implored them to inculcate a sense of citizenship, responsibility, secularism, and national integration. Through this speech, he inspires young graduates who are soon to join different professional fields. Imagine, if you will, dear students, a hall full of young people, young students who are awaiting their degrees and raring to go out in the world so that they may join new jobs and contribute to the development of the nation. At the top of your screens right now, you can see a facade of the Aligarh Muslim University. Observe how impressive and vast the building is. At the bottom right, you can see a picture of the mock convocation drill for the year 1964-65. This is the courtesy of World of Alex from their Facebook account. The chapter titled The Responsibility of Young Men begins from somewhere in the middle of Shastriji's speech. To quote, he says, "Whatever your station in future life, each one of you should first of all think of yourselves as citizens of the country. This confers on you certain rights which are guaranteed by the Constitution, but it also subjects you to certain responsibilities which also have to be clearly understood." Here, Shastriji is trying to talk to the young people sitting in the hall and telling them no matter what station they achieve in future life, station here means position. Some of them may have become doctors, some of them may have become civil servants, some teachers, and perhaps some actors. Shastriji says, no matter what position they achieve in their future lives, each one of them should first and foremost remember that they are citizens of this country. And when he says that, he reminds these young people that the term citizen confers on them certain rights as a citizen of India, which are guaranteed by the Constitution. But at the same time, it is not rights without duties. It also means that they are subjects to certain responsibilities towards their nation, which also need to be clearly understood so that they may dispense their duties towards their nation as responsible and informed citizens. Again, in the words of Shastriji, and I quote, ours is a democracy which enjoins freedom to the individual, but this freedom has to be subjected to a number of voluntary restraints in the interests of organized society. And these voluntary restraints have to be exercised and demonstrated in everyday life. Unquote. Shastriji here reminds the young citizens, the young students sitting in the auditorium, that India is a democracy. It is very important in his capacity as a citizen and as the Prime Minister of the nation to remind young people of the nature of our country. India is a democracy, and by a democracy, he says, it means that it gives freedom to the individual citizens. But he also reminds the young group that this freedom also involves voluntary restraints. Voluntary means something which you do out of your own free will. Restraint is the quality of behaving in a calm and controlled manner and not doing what must not be done. So Shastriji reminds them that these voluntary restraints must be exercised and demonstrated in everyday life. These restraints go a long way in respecting the freedom that we enjoy as citizens of this country. To elaborate, he means that freedom cannot be something which is so much of free will that it impinges upon another human's freedom. It should not encroach upon a fellow citizen's freedom as a citizen of this nation. Dear students, at the end of every page, you can take a look at the glossary, which gives you to understand the meaning of the difficult words that you may encounter in your text. Shastriji further says, and I quote, a good citizen is one who obeys the law, whether there is a policeman around or not, and who takes delight in performing his civic duties. In the olden days, a sense of self-restraint and discipline was inculcated by the combined effort of the family and the teacher. The economic stresses of present-day life unfortunately do not leave enough time to the parents to look after the children. Unquote. Here, Shastriji expresses his concern about the changing times where an increasingly educated population has started working outdoors, men and women included. He refers back to the olden times of India, where self-restraint and discipline was something which was put inside a child's psychology by the combined effort of the family and the teacher. A small example would be, when you grow up, your family teaches you to respect and obey elders. When you go to school, the teacher reinforces the same idea by asking you to do the same. Family and teachers both tell you not to lie, not to cheat. So a child brought up between the family and the teacher never gets an opportunity to give in to temptation and adopt wrong ways of life. Now Shastriji says that a good citizen is one who obeys the law. whether or not somebody is watching them. An example would be when you jump red lights simply because there is no traffic policeman in sight. The human tendency to break law has taken such enormous proportions that the state is having to install CCTV cameras, computerized tracking, so on and so forth, in order to maintain law and order. A good citizen, according to Shastriji, not just performs his civic duties but also takes delight in them. He loves being a good citizen. He loves upholding the Constitution. He enjoys his rights and is very religious in performing his duties. Shastriji further expresses his concern about the economic stresses of present day life, which do not leave enough time for parents to look after their children as they did in the past when the fathers were working and the mothers were staying home looking after the kids. Dear students, Shastriji gave this lecture, this speech, back in 1964, and we are here in 2020. As you all can observe around you, everyone is having to work due to the economic stresses that we face each day. Our needs are increasing and our wants are increasing even more exponentially. As a result of which, we are all out trying to earn a better living, and our little children suffer in creches or sometimes alone at home. Also, technology has taken away everyone from their loved ones. We all live under just one roof, but we are so engrossed, so immersed in technology that we do not talk to the person sitting right next to us, but we may interact for hours with someone sitting miles away. In the glossary, you can take a look at the words. Civic means to be connected with a town or city. Olden is related to the old times. Self-restraint, as we discussed earlier, is the ability to stop ourselves from saying or doing something that we want to do but should not do. Inculcated means to learn or remember ideas, habits, etc. by repeating them. Stresses are giving something special attention because it is important. Stresses in this particular paragraph means a compulsion. The economic stress is the economic compulsion. Shastriji further says, in the educational institutions, the numbers have grown so large as to take away the benefits which used to accrue formerly by personal contact between the teacher and the taught. Inevitably, our young students are often left much to their own resources. Often this creates problems which we all know about. This is an important aspect which needs thorough examination. The responsibility of our young citizens is great. In my view, every station in life is important in itself. Work has its own dignity, and there is great satisfaction in doing one's own job to the best of one's ability. Unquote. Dear students, do you see how genuinely and how comprehensively Shastriji thought about society, citizens, youth, and the development of nation? Shastriji is very worried in this speech when he says that in all educational institutions, the number of students have grown so large that the benefit of collective classroom teaching takes a backseat. Earlier, he says that the benefits of the personal contact between the teacher and the taught, which means the student, as well as the collective studying of a group of young learners, would accrue benefits of learning. But now, these young students are left to their own devices. You must have observed in a classroom often we have upwards of 30 students, sometimes even touching the astonishing number of 90. Thanks to our huge population and lesser number of educational institutions, the existing educational institutions suffer from the burden of excess student base. Even in 2020, as we talk today, we still have less number of educational institutions in comparison to the number of young learners who are eager to study. Now, this disparity between learner size and number of educational institutions creates a problem, and it is something we all know about. It is a problem of surplus, and it is also a problem of paucity. There are surplus students and there is a scarcity of resources, be it teachers, be it time. A single teacher sometimes is not able to do justice to a class of 50 or 60 in a span of 40-45 minutes. Shastriji says, this disparity is a very important aspect which hinders the development of our nation, and it should be very thoroughly examined. He puts great hope in the young citizens of our country and hopes that when they join the workforce, they will look at problems like these and be genuinely concerned about the future of this nation, which is the children, the young learners. He encourages and implores the young graduates to think on these lines and visualize solutions for these problems so that in the future we have adequate resources to meet the educational needs of our young population so that our great nation may develop as we hope it to become a great nation. Shastriji says that every station in life is important in itself. Here he not just means our professional station, our professional position, he also means to say that all of us, young graduates, are going to become parents at some stage in life. So he wants them to think about these problems as a citizen and as a member of the workforce of this nation. He wants them to think the kind of life they want to give their children, the kind of time and attention young children need, and to address these issues as not just a parent but also a citizen of this country working in different capacities. Shastriji says work has its own dignity. No matter how big or small a job we do, there is a great sense of dignity in that, a great sense of respect in that, and therefore one should derive great satisfaction from doing their job to the best of their ability. A quick look at the glossary. Accrue means to increase over a period of time. Formerly is earlier or in the past. Inevitably means unavoidably, something that which cannot be stopped from happening. Resources are materials and services which can be used. Aspect is one part of an idea. Next up in the speech, Shastriji says, and I quote, "Whatever the duties, we should apply ourselves with sincerity and devotion. Such an approach, apart from being good in itself, also has the added advantage of opening avenues for further advancement. We have to see whether we have done our own job well before thinking of criticizing anybody else. All too often we succumb to the temptation of decrying others without bothering to look to ourselves." Unquote. Shastriji here means to say that we must apply our mind and energy with the utmost sincerity and devotion towards the duties which have been assigned to us, whether it is as students, as members of the family, as citizens, as employees, no matter what, but we should be very devoted and sincere towards our work. Shastriji tells you that such an approach of sincerity and devotion is not just a good approach in itself because it is a virtue, but it also has the added advantage, which means benefit, of opening avenues. Avenues means paths, ways for further advancement. Advancement is development, progress. So when you try to do something with the utmost sincerity and devotion, you employ your entire being in that work. You try to find better ways to do it, and in this quest for perfection, you accidentally discover a lot of new knowledge, a lot of new skills, and all of these go a long way in developing your personality and intelligence, which equip you for better jobs in future. They develop your career because they develop your personality. Shastriji also warns us against criticizing others. He says that we must focus on doing our own job well before we even think of criticizing other people. Shastriji says that very often we try to justify our own mistakes by finding fault with others' work. All too often, he says, we give in to the temptation of bringing down other people as useless without even bothering to look at ourselves. In other words, we must find fault within ourselves instead of finding it in other people. Because the only person that you can change, dear students, in your lives is yourself. You can change your own personality and habits, and most importantly, you can change your responses to circumstances. It would be foolish to expect people and circumstances to change according to our wills and fancies. But the only thing that we can do, and most comfortably, is to change our own thought process and responses. The glossary at the bottom of this page will help you understand the words and their meanings. Shastriji further implores the young audience, and I quote, "Never forget that loyalty to the country comes ahead of all other loyalties, and this is an absolute loyalty, since one cannot weigh it in terms of what one receives. It is essential to remember that the entire country is one, and that anyone who fosters or promotes separatism or vociferous tendencies is not our true friend. What I have said stems from a desire to see that the youth of our country prepares itself in a disciplined and determined manner for the responsibilities of tomorrow." Unquote. Shastriji wants you to know that loyalty to the nation is the utmost value that you should have. He says that loyalty to the country comes much before any other loyalty. We are all loyal to our family, friends, social groups, so on and so forth. But when it comes to loyalty to the country, we cannot afford to be divided based on separate groups. Shastriji says the loyalty to our nation is an absolute loyalty. There are no ifs and buts to it, because you cannot compare it in terms of what you receive from the nation. It is like love. It survives on giving and not on comparing what we receive in return. Love is not a trade. You do not exchange, you do not barter. You give freely because loving brings you joy. Loving your nation should come as naturally as that. You should not really be expecting anything in return, but wanting to give yourself heart and soul to the nation. Shastriji says that it is essential to remember that India is one, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari and Rajasthan to Arunachal Pradesh, and that anyone in this country or outside who fosters or wants to develop and promote an idea of separatism, of differences in us, is a person who is an enemy and not a true friend. Shastriji talks of vociferous tendencies. Vociferous emanates from the term Fission, Fissiparus, means something which has a tendency to separate, to divide. And tendency is a natural, usual behavior. Shastriji warns young people against divisive forces in society who divide young minds based on different topics like caste, creed, religion, gender, so on and so forth. In fact, even regionalism in a country like India. Shastriji says we have to be very alert against such people who promote separatism because it is not in the interest of our nation. In the long term, it is going to harm us all. We Indians are one heart, one body, one soul, and therefore we should not listen to anybody as a friend who wants us to feel separate and have animosity towards a fellow citizen based on a different lifestyle. Shastriji sincerely says that his words emerge from a deep desire where he wants to see the youth of the country be very focused on the development of a nation and have some discipline and be determined for the responsibilities of tomorrow. Here, Shastriji means that we were a young nation which had recently achieved freedom from the British. He cautions the young minds of vociferous tendencies in the society which could pose challenges in the future and wants the young people to have a scientific temperament and an unquestionable loyalty towards the nation so that no vested interests can divide Indians on the basis of imaginary constructs. Quote, a democratic country is sustained not by the greatness of a few, but the cooperative effort of the many. The future of the country is in your hands, and as the older generations complete their task, the new ones come along to take their place. If they are well equipped as individuals and as citizens, the country's future will be bright indeed. At a time when you are at the threshold of a new period in your life, I would urge you to play your role with confidence and dignity. Unquote. Shastriji refers to the newly formed democracy that was the country of India. We all know through history that this great landmass was a group of kingdoms and zamindaris which were later united in 1947 as a complete nation by the name of India. So Shastriji tells the young audience present that a democratic country is not sustained, is not kept alive by the greatness of a few rajas or maharajas, but a democracy is of the people, by the people, and for the people, and therefore it is the cooperative effort of the many. Dear students, you do know that before independence, not every section of society was allowed to participate in the nation's progress. A lot of people were disallowed from joining certain professions and vocations of life. In fact, women were simply not allowed to leave the domestic household. They were not allowed to study, they were not allowed to work, to own property, to own money, so on and so forth. The third gender was not even thought of as humans in society. So we had a lot of problems in the ancient and medieval India which were tackled and solutions applied for when India became independent and a democratic nation. So Shastriji says that the new India will develop only through the cooperative effort of the many. As you have witnessed in so many years after independence, that the collective contribution of men, women alike in workforces and in all walks of life has brought India to the forefront of global positioning. India is no longer a small nation of snake charmers and elephants, but a nation which is a power to be reckoned with. Shastriji, back in 1964, tells these young graduates that the future of the country is in their hands and they should responsibly take their responsibilities into the future from the older generations who have completed their task, just as you all will be taking the responsibilities and the task of running this nation from us, the previous generation. Shastriji says that all individuals should be properly equipped as citizens and only then the country's future will be bright. How do you equip yourself as individuals and citizens? It is through education and it is also through a sense of brotherhood, a sense of citizenship, and a sense of equality and equity. Shastriji again reminds this group that they are at a threshold of a new period in their life. A threshold is an entrance, a doorway, a new path. It comes from the word threshold. You all know that threshing is the process by which we separate grain from the stems, from the crop. What remains behind is called thresh. In the olden times, farmers would bundle up the thresh and put it under the doors of their houses to keep the cold air out, to keep the water out, and also to keep the dust out. So, whenever people were entering the house, they had to cross over it. They would not push it away because, in that, they would be allowing for the entry of dust and cold air, etc. So, from there, the word threshold comes. It is a hold under the door which is made up of thresh. So, Shastriji asks these young students that they are at the threshold of a new period in their lives. They are going to cross over a threshold before which was their student life and ahead of which is their professional life. And therefore, he urges them. He makes a very sincere, strong prayer plea to them that they should play their role as citizens of the nation with confidence and dignity. Further, Shastriji says, and I quote, "Our position with regard to secularism is known so well that it hardly needs any reiteration. It is embodied in our Constitution, which ensures equal respect for all religions and equal opportunities for all citizens, irrespective of their caste and creed and the faith which they profess. In spite of a seeming diversity, there is a fundamental unity in India, which we all cherish, and it has to be our constant endeavor to maintain and strengthen this unity in diversity." Unquote. Dear students, at the beginning of this lecture, I had mentioned to you that Shastriji was known to be a staunch secularist. He was a very firm and strong believer in secularism. Secularism is the belief that religion should not influence or be involved in the organization of society, education, government, etc. That the nation should have equal opportunities for all its citizens. So Shastriji says that India's position regarding secularism is so well known worldwide that it does not really need in any reiteration. Reiteration means repetition. Every single day in your NCERT books, in the pledges that you take at schools and colleges, in your classes, in your homes, everywhere, you are reminded that you are citizens of this country, and India is a secular nation where we respect everyone irrespective of their faith and social identities. Shastriji tells them that the secularism is embodied in our constitution. It is so inherent to our country, to our culture, that our constitution is living testimony to the values of secularism. To be an embodiment means to be a very good example of something. When you read our Constitution, every single sentence there upholds the dignity and equality of all citizens. Our Constitution gives equal respect to all religions and equal opportunities to all citizens, irrespective of, without any consideration of, the caste, creed, and religion that its citizens are following. Creed and faith are interchangeable words where you belong to a certain social group based on your religious beliefs. Shastriji also says that although we look like a very diverse nation, we don't look like each other. Our food habits are different. Our costumes are different. Our languages are very different. Our practices are different. But despite this diversity, which we can see on the surface, there is a fundamental unity in India. Fundamental is something which is basic and essential. So he wants to tell you that India will remain India if we respect our diversity, if we celebrate our diversity, and we respect each other's unique identities without feeling threatened by them. We should all encourage each other to live and flourish like brothers and sisters in this nation, where we are all free to contribute to the development of our nation in whatever manner possible. He also says that this diversity is not something to be scared of. It is something to be cherished instead. Cherished means valued, greatly loved. Which other nation in the world can boast of such diversity? All other nations have more or less similar cultures, similar language, the same kind of food. Why do you think so many foreign tourists want to come to India? Because this is one place where they can experience multiple cultures, multiple identities, multiple experiences, and it is a very rich experience for them and they crave it. Our diversity is our beauty, and despite our diversity, we are one. India is one, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari and Rajasthan to Arunachal Pradesh. Shastriji says that we should all constantly, continuously endeavor, which means make an effort, to maintain and strengthen this unity. Which unity, dear students? This unity despite our diversity. We may be wearing different clothes, we may be speaking different languages, but we are all Indians, and that should be the topmost thought in our minds. A very quick look at the glossary. Secularism, as we know, is no differentiation based on religious beliefs. Reiteration is repetition. Embodied is to be an excellent example of something. Ensure means to make sure. Creed is a set of beliefs or principles, especially religious ones, that strongly influence someone's life. Profess means to state honestly, to speak honestly that we have a particular religious belief, feeling, or faith. Diversity means the wide variety of something. Fundamental means basic and important. To cherish is to value and nurture. Constant means something which is happening or existing all the time. Endeavor is to try hard. And strengthen comes from strength, which means to make or become strong. And now to the last segment of this abridged speech titled The Responsibility of Young Men. And I quote Shastriji, "The country can progress only if it does away completely with vociferous tendencies and emerges as an integrated whole. And it is in the field of education that the seed of secularism has to be sown at the earliest stages so that the plant can be carefully nurtured as it grows. Unquote. Dear students, you see how beautifully Shastriji emphasizes on the importance of secularism and the role it plays in keeping a nation together. We all know that before 1947, India was a group of kingdoms and zamindaris. In 1947, all those zamindaris and kingdoms were brought together under the umbrella term of India. And with our diversity, we can stay united most beautifully if we celebrate each other's diversity and take pride in all of our different varieties of cultures as our own. United we will stand, and divided we will fall. Shastriji warns young students against vested interests who will try at various stages in your life to divide you as citizens based on religion, caste, color, creed, etc. Dear students, you must be very careful of such people and not pay attention to them. In fact, you should always lovingly try and educate them that India is one whole and a secular nation where we respect and love each other's diverse cultures and celebrate them as our own. Shastriji also recognizes the importance of education for the aim of secularism. He says that the seed of secularism should be sown at very early stages, which means the kindergarten school stages, and it should be nurtured until it becomes a plant by the time the individual reaches university. You see, this is very significant because he is speaking to an audience of young graduates who are going to pass out from the Aligarh Muslim University on that day. So, education and educational institutions are the pillars of any nation. We must all respect our places of education and uphold the values enshrined in the Constitution, just like Shastriji emphasized on the value of secularism for India to remain one strong whole nation. Now, as we close this lecture, let's quickly take a look at the meaning of the word university and the origin of it. A university is an institution of higher education and research which awards academic degrees in various academic disciplines. The etymology of the word comes from universitas, which is a Latin word, and it means a whole from universe. Universitas Magistrorum et Scholarium is a Latin word which roughly translates as community of teachers and scholars. So a university may be thought of as a community of teachers and scholars. A quick look at the universities in India. The very first established universities in India were the University of Calcutta, of Madras, and the University of Bombay, all three in the year 1857. As of 1st January 2020, a total of 821 universities exist in the country. Universities in India are accredited by the University Grants Commission under the UGC Act 1956. There are 15 professional councils also which control various aspects of accreditation and coordination. Broadly, there are 4 types of universities in India. The first is the central universities, which are 54 in number as on December 2018. There are also the state universities. We have 411 of them as on January 2020. Deemed universities are 123 in India as per October 2017 data. And after the central, state and deemed universities, we also have the private universities, which total a number of 282 as per the data available in October 2017. Dear students, on your screen you can see 3 questions which are part of your assignment which you have to attempt and submit to to your respective teachers. Find the meaning of the word glossophobia and then make a list of different kinds of phobias with their description. You are also encouraged to write a speech in about 500 words on the importance of honesty. Please write your speech as if you are to address a live audience. And with that, we come to the end of this lecture. The Department of Higher Education, Haryana, looks forward to your feedback and suggestions on the email IDs provided on your screen right now. Thank you very much for being present with us.